Oh yes. Well, hello again and welcome back to my channel. Now, after my teaser trailer video a little while ago, it is finally here. The Creality Falcon2 22 watt laser engraver. Now, quite a rare occurrence for the channel. This video is actually going to be about unboxing, setting it up, test cuts and first impressions from a complete novice's point of view. As much as I've wanted one for a very long time, this is the first time I have ever got my hand on a laser engraver, and I'm really excited and looking forward to doing it. Now, just before I cut to the unboxing, I just want to deal with the topic of this being gifted to me by the company Creality. Now, I take any collaboration very seriously, and I know there are some folk out there thinking, oh, he'll just take anything free that's thrown at him. Well, that simply isn't the case. I will only do any form of collaboration if it's something primarily that interests me and that I could see a benefit for me with my one-handed woodworking skills and my small business enterprise. This definitely fits the bill. I've had to turn down work recently on things like some of my chopping boards and tables because I haven't been able to provide that bespoke engraving capacity, and this Creality Falcon2 certainly, hopefully, will be able to do that for me. So let's deal with the promotion bit. So let's cut to actually getting this thing unboxed, set up and running if I can. I've just realised, I suppose I've stayed away from unboxing videos before because you only really get one go at it, don't you? Which is making me a little bit nervous. So what I am going to do, I'm going to do the whole thing, but I'm going to speed it up because obviously in real time it'd be quite boring. But I'm actually learning from my Laguna bandsaw setup thing as opposed to just delving in and hoping for the best. I've been online and I've made a list of things to follow on this. Now, what I'll actually do is I'll put that list in the description box. Might be of use to some folk who might be considering buying one of these. So I have got my knife at the ready. Cue the music. Done. Well, for the setup, so the next stage is obviously to move to the computer setup and stuff, but just 9 minutes, one hand in it. So imagine the two-armed folk could probably do that in half the time. So 5 minutes to set up. I did say this in the trailer video actually. The big appeal of this one for me taking on was that the frame came completely attached, so there was less faff, less hassle. Yeah, so it's just a case of plugging the laser in, plugging the pump in, power cable. Woohoo! Right, let's go on to the next step. Right, going to leave the laser alone for a minute. The next step's to get the software installed, and I'm going to be using Lightburn because I've never done anything like this before. Apparently that's quite intuitive. So I've got the iPad, just got to download the software. It works with a Mac, but it won't work on an iPad. Absolutely ridiculous, this. Okay folks, the iMac is in. I can't believe there's no software for an iPad Pro. Anyway, that's my problem, not yours. So I've got the iMac in. What have I done since? Well, I've connected all the laser engraver up. There's a USB-C port to the back of my Mac. I've put the SD card, which has all the instructions and the manuals, and I think the download for the software later on, which I'm going to need. That's in the back of the Mac as well. The emergency stop is depressed, so that needs to come up and the keys need to be switched to on. I fired it up, I just switched it on, not done anything else yet, and the air compressor ran for a bit and it just, you know, made a few noises and stuff. The lens is on green, the fire is on green, the air is flashing red, so that's where that's up to with this. Now, I sound like I know what I'm talking about here, and as explained at the beginning, I've never used one of these machines before. But what I did find when you go and look is there's a guy called Make With Tech on YouTube, and I watched his tutorial about this video. Really good, takes it very slowly balanced, takes you through the processes. All I've done really is I've made notes from his video, and I will put those notes in the description as well. They're just bullet points. I'm going to talk you through, hopefully, getting this thing started to do some test cuts on a little bit of ply or something like that. Okay, so here we go. Now, once you get onto Lightburn, the first thing you've got to do is connect the laser engraver to the Lightburn software. Now, if it doesn't come up automatically, and it should if it's the first time, if it doesn't, you go and click on devices. And then the next stage is to import. Now you go to the SD card that you've plugged in. So in there will be software, and then Lightburn, and then English, and then Creality Falcon2. There you go. And then you can see it's popped up there, and then you click OK. Right then. And you'll select, shocked me a bit, and it's letting you know that it's connected. So once we've done that, the next on my list is to go up to Lightburn Preferences, and in this one you want to check that it's clicked on millimeters per minute, okay, and then click on OK. And then another thing we need to do in the setup is go to Edit at the top, Device Settings, and in this one you want to check that the Enable Laser Fire button is on, and then Laser On When Framing is also on, and then we click OK. Now the best way I can describe it, says that by switching that on, it gives it like a low intensity at the beginning and it builds up. An analogy as best I could describe it is like maybe a soft start on a table saw or something like that. So it's starting off low and then it's building up in terms of power. Right, we're getting there slowly but surely, so I've got to be dead careful with my mouse because it's really sensitive and it keeps zooming in on the grid pattern. Anyway, right, so the next thing is to check that we are going from start from, and we want to make sure on that it's absolute, because that allows you to start from, as I understand, anywhere in the middle here, whereas if you start from user origin, that will always be the bottom left hand corner. So we want absolute ticked on that. Now the next step is to focus the laser, and that's where this little device here comes in. Right, and the rule I've got written down here is the thinner the material being engraved, the further away the laser needs to be. All right, so it says on here that, you know, for 1 to 3 millimeter ply, then that's the thickest one on this. So if I move the laser into the middle, and then if I put this down, because we're only using some, I think it's like 2 mil thick on my little test cuts here, so we bring it down to that using the little, there we go. So if we've got that and then tighten that up, now we know that the laser is focused and at the correct distance, so I can move that out the way. Right folks, just jumping into my own video in the post edit. Have I just made a mistake there? So this little device here to focus the laser in, do you need to put the piece of ply or the piece of wood or whatever it is you're working on, engraving or cutting, do you need to put that down first, then put this on top? Or do you put this against the bed like I just did? Let me know in the comments. Right, back to the video. The next step is to draw a shape. So let's give it a go. So as it done with the guy on Make It With Tech, he just used something like, let's have a look here, a hexagon. So if I click on that, and then in my grid, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, so we've got a hexagonal pattern there. Right, the next stage is to configure the power, the speed, and the number of passes required. Now that's going to be dependent on what type of material you're using and whether you are engraving or cutting. Now Creality have taken the guesswork out of this because on the SD card there is a specification sheet which I can show you here, which shows the different types of materials, the thicknesses, the recommended power, the recommended work speed, and the amount of passes. Now I'm going to be trying this out with some 2mm ply type stuff. All right, okay, so if I look here, I've got 2mm thickness, so the recommended power is 100 and the recommended work speed is 700 with 1 pass. So I go back to my hexagonal shape here and I can see that I've inputted that the power is at 100 and the speed is at 700. Now I'm just going to move the laser out of the way and obviously put my sheet that I'm going to be cutting on. Now if I want to check where the laser is actually going to be targeting, I can click frame and what you can see there is I'm kind of out a little bit, aren't I? So if I move this across where it's planning on cutting, let me try that again. It was only later when I was going through the manual that I actually realised, instead of all this faffing around moving the bed, I could have simply used this control panel at the front. So you can see where it's actually going to be cutting. So I think we're ready to go. So before we click the start button, got to put on these bad boys. All right, and then we will click start and fingers crossed. Whoa, bit smoky in here. Gonna have to get the door open. First attempt though, look at that. Not bad, not bad. Right, let me get the door open. Right, the next logical step will be for me to try my hand at engraving on this machine. But before I move on to that, I just want you to have a little closer look at the shape that I cut, and look how clean the lines are on that shape. Now, my experience of, say, looking for gifts made on a laser cutter, you know, things you might see at Christmas or birthdays, Mother's Day, that kind of thing, is around the cut line you tend to see quite a lot of scorching. But look at that. That's really good, isn't it? So I asked a couple of folk who know a lot more about these machines than I do, why is it the quality of that is so good? And apparently it's to do with this integrated air assist system on this model. So what it actually does, it automatically adjusts the airflow depending on what it's cutting, depth of cut and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm really impressed with that, and I'll be very interested to see how it gets on with the engraving, because I'm going to try my hand at my logo. Right, so I'm going to try my hand at the logo. Now, the material I'm using is the same thickness, so I don't need to check with this little device here. Now, to get your own image in, you simply go up to the top left and click File and then Import. Now, I'm going to stop it at that point because I don't see all my files. And then I'm just going to select my screenshot there. Now it's come up on the screen and it's huge. Right, so it's far too big for the grid. So what I'm going to do is to shrink it down a bit. If I go up to the top left, get it on the 2 arrows, shrink that down, quite substantially, and then put that back into the grid. Now I found if I click this button at the top here next to the plus and the minus, click that one, it brings it back up to size. So that seems like a reasonable size. I'm going to just try that framing tool again, just to see if it's in the right engraving area. Let's try that. So let's have a look. So I'm a little bit off. So I'm thinking I need to go this way and up a little bit. Let's try that. Wrong way. Okay, let's try that. Now I think it's a bit too big for it, so what I need to do is shrink it down a bit more, otherwise it's not going to go on the space. So if I bring that in, centre that a little bit, let's try the framing tool again. Yeah, that's looking good. So I checked the specifications and I need to be on 30%. And also 6,000 for speed, 1 pass. Now that should be good. Let's not forget these beauties. Alright folks, just a quick post edit while I'm filming. I'm making next week's video, which is a desk for the laser engraver and my computer. The eagle-eyed of you might have spotted that I did not connect the hose from the air compressor to the laser itself. I did for the second one in the engraving, which you can see now, but please make sure that you actually connect that pipe to the laser at the top. It's tucked away a little bit on the laser, so just be careful and don't forget that one because I missed it out on my first test cut. Okay folks, so what are my initial thoughts in this first video on the Creality Falcon 2 laser engraver? Right, well let me put it this way. If you'd have said to me a week ago, when your new laser engraver arrives, you'll have it all set up on your own, connected to the computer, running some test cuts to produce a shape, and running an engraving on an image of your choice, all within a day, then I probably would have laughed quite politely right in your face. Because if you followed the channel for a while, you know I'm not the most technically gifted or minded person. But that probably speaks volumes about the machine. It was very easy and straightforward to set up. Getting the software, obviously I had an issue, but once I got it set up and running, I was okay with it. And I think with more use, I would find it really easy to use. Following the Mate with Tech video, and I'll leave a link in the description to that channel, and please have a look at it and follow it, really good. It just outlined it very simply and straightforward process, and I've left my processes in the description as well if you maybe want to try and follow them. Now there obviously are lots of things I've not covered here. You know, in the specification it says it will cut 15mm of wood in 1 pass. Now probably a question I'm throwing out is what kind of folk would be doing that, how often, and why would you do something like that? Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm a complete novice in the world of lasers, but here's my train of thought. Whether this is right or wrong, I don't know. But if you have a laser that is maybe less power, like 5 or 10 watts, I'd imagine the likelihood is you're running that at maximum capacity more often than say if you've got a laser that's 22 watts, then you're not putting it at its maximum capacity, thus putting less stress on the machine. Now, am I right? Am I wrong? I really don't know, and point that out to me in the comments. So I'd imagine a more powerful laser doing this kind of stuff would maybe last longer, less stress on the machine. Let me know what you think. The second point I'd like to make is I've got another video coming up in a couple of weeks, and obviously I haven't filmed any of that yet. Are there any specific questions you'd like to ask me? Are there any specific things about this model, because you might be thinking of purchasing one? Then please get in touch via the comments or the social media. I will do my best to answer it. Whether I can or not is another thing, but if you fire the question over to me and if I can incorporate it in the video, I'd be more than happy to do so. Okay folks, just one last thing before I go. If you've made it to the very end, could I please ask you to maybe consider giving it a thumbs up and possibly even subscribing to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, then if you look in the description, I've got a link to a buy me a coffee, or maybe have a look at my website where we have a members only section, which has a £3 per month flat rate subscription to additional content like behind the scenes footage of stuff like this, vlog style videos, and ad-free versions of the YouTube videos as well. Okay, as ever everyone, take care, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.